Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining me for another session of Zoom into Wine. Every Wednesday night, 7 o'clock, Zoom into Wine brings a live Zoom together, a little Zoom community. We're going to taste some great wines tonight, create some fun discussion about one of my favorite wines on the planet, Barolo. Tonight is our topic is Barolo. We've got 5 amazing Barolo that we're going to be tasting together. And I'm excited to have you all join us. Thank you. I've got some folks Zooming from all over the place that are joining us this evening. And some of you will be watching this video at a later time, maybe even just finding us on Facebook. We also post to YouTube, and we have a lot of fun creating this content. My name is Ian Blackburn. I'm a wine educator, and I've been teaching wine for about 25 years here in Los Angeles. My website, learnaboutwine.com. I am a buyer for the wine store called merchantofwine.com, and I've traveled the wine world, written a book, and have a lot of fun learning about wine every single day. These sessions let me taste some really fun stuff with you guys, some of the things that we have in the store. Sometimes I don't have them in the store. They're just fun wines to be able to explore and see if we can get some interest behind them. I always believe that wine can only go as far as the wine audience will take it. And, sometimes wines can get a little too crazy, too obscure, and the audience starts to depart. Or maybe we crush a category so badly with wines that are fighting at a low price point, we just destroy the category. Wine just kind of changes all the time. And there's new areas and new grapes being developed, and there's always a lot to learn. Well, there's also some classic varieties like tonight's topic on Barolo. Barolo's been a very important wine for a while, but maybe not as long as you think. The Barolo wine market was really wine made by grandparents up until about the 1980s, when the whole area started to get pretty organized. There were some beautiful wines made in the 1960s, 70s. You don't find many available to explore prior to that time period. The vineyards and the appellation DOCG just really started to get organized in the 1980s. And then the promotion of Barolo began as a very respectable region. You know, the Italian government really didn't organize wine until the early 1970s with the DOC laws. Some exceptions, some areas started doing it on their own, but really the whole idea behind organization was a little slow. They were a little slow to grasp that. And so now the regions are just creating one rule after another and building up on top of that, some expertise, some wisdom, and generations. Now grandpa doesn't make the wine anymore. His grandson does, and he went to get his doctorate in winemaking, and the quality of wines are starting to elevate even higher. And sometimes you learn a lot from grandpa. Grandpa brought some really good tools to the shed, and some really beautiful plantings. So Italy has some wonderful things to look forward to. On the topic of Barolo, I'm not sure how many of you have been there before, but it is a great spot to visit. And I've done a number of trips with some groups there, and we've seen a lot of these producers too. And so if you've not been to Barolo, I'd put it on your list of one of the great places to visit, especially if you're a wine fan. Certainly one of the great places to go eat as well. I'm going to get into a PowerPoint that we've constructed to kind of guide our conversation this evening. I'll tell you what order the wines are in. Sometimes we do it in a blind way, and I just kind of let you taste them. But these are really tough. They're all great. So we're just going to take it one wine at a time. We're going to go through this beautiful flight of all these producers, and let me tell you about the order as we get there. First, let me talk about where Barolo is, northern Italy, right near the border, Switzerland, France, and it's in a spot that's very hilly and an amazing terrain to grow grapes on. When you get a little bit of that pitch, the water runs down the hill, the sun hits it at a particular angle, the soils get a little bit thinner, and the wine quality starts to soar. And the monks discovered that 1,000 years ago. And so they're always looking for these slopes to really to elevate the quality. And Barolo is a perfect example. It is a mono varietal wine. You make wine from a single grape variety called Nebbiolo. And they, like I said, they really started to elevate these wines with some structure, some rules. And now, in order to be called Barolo, the wine needs to be aged for at least 38 months, and for Reserva, 62 months. Nebbiolo grape loves to be aged. It's tightly wound, one of the most tannic grape varieties on the planet. Some of the colors kind of even tell you, I think when I go to smell a Barolo, I think my brain moves into like taste bud protection mode. And I'm about to put something super powerful and tannic in my mouth, and I just start to salivate and protect what I've got. Nebbiolo is just a really interesting grape, really not mass produced anywhere else in the world. Some pretty good examples down in Guadalupe Wine Valley, Mexico. You'll see some here in Southern California, planted in places like Temecula up through Paso Robles. And then not a lot of any Nebbiolo planted anywhere else that I know of. And it's not called anything else anywhere either. It's just a really kind of an exclusive grape variety, and some wines are compared to Nebbiolo around the world. But that's kind of the state of the state there. 14 million bottles of Barolo are produced each year. Let's see, that's 5 times fewer than Chianti. They want to point that out. And there's been a series of amazing vintages to be sure. The most noted stars are 10, 13, 15, and 16. But you can find some really beautiful wines from all vintages, from all the producers. When the vintages aren't good, producers just make less, and they really cut back their expectations and adjust some of their volume knobs to make better and better wine. So again, Barolo, it's in Piedmont, Italy, surrounding areas, and up against the adjacent star of the area is called Barbaresco. There's also the town of Alba and the wines of Alba, like Barbera. And then there's Asti, and Asti makes some fantastic Barbera as well. The areas inside of the Langhe, and you can declassify the Nebbiolo to a Nebbiolo de Langhe and not have to let it sit there for 36 months before you start getting your money back. And that's better for younger vines, higher yielding vines, and areas that are maybe not quite up to the par of the more expensive Barolo wines. Here's wine number 1 that we're going to be tasting tonight, Giacomo Grimaldi. This comes in around $58. I carry a number of Grimaldi family wines. And so there are a number of Grimaldis on the website. Bruno and her husband Franco, and they have an enologist, and they all work together as a family here. Giacomo and Bruna Grimaldi, and she makes her own wines under her name as well. It's a very similar situation to what's happening with Conterno and some of the Conternos being in the same house with different names, that kind of thing. I started off with this wine. It is a 2016, which is a great vintage because of how it's performing right now. I tasted through these wines before I put them in the decanters, and I believe this to be one of the wines that's in a very pretty moment. It's the production is always kind of leans toward that. It's not very over extracted. They do some wonderful things. They keep it in very large wood. This large wood format for 30 plus months really slows things down. A lot of wood volume, not a lot of oak volume to the wine. So you don't get very oaky imprint, but you do get a nice amount of evaporation, and very slow evaporation. I love wines made this way. The traditional nose of Barolo, you'll have some amazing energy here in the glass. They tend to talk about it, break down something simple as like rose petals, or tar and roses. You could often pick up some balsamic elements in the wine. Colors can vary, but this one picks up just a little bit of that rusty brownish orange hue. And that's kind of a tell for Barolo, is that rustic orangish hue. It almost has the color of if tannin had color, and it doesn't, but you would almost expect it to look like a rusty nail. And that's kind of what you get in a glass of Barolo. Oh, that is wound like a top, but it's super pretty, very tender. And these wines are, like I said, if you have not experienced tannins at their ultimate level, these wines will get us there. I went to Barolo with a very important restaurateur here in Los Angeles back in a while ago now, but everybody wanted to see him. He was a great buyer, ran a great restaurant. Italians loved him. So everywhere we went, they wanted to feed us and give us all these great wines. And I literally could barely feel my tongue in my mouth, and just had to tap out because it was so much of a good thing. And yeah, they can sit for very long, big meals in northern in Piedmont, and there's some amazing food up here. And that's really what it looks like almost looks like we're in Lamora, looking out over the hills towards the Alps. And this is what it feels like looking out over the cities of Barolo into the vineyards, those little quaint towns. And then lots of vineyard land. Let's see how you guys are feeling about that. We do have a little chat box. Thank you, Lisa, for being in there. And Natalie, good to see you. Steph and Dave, excellent to have you on the Zoom. Yes, I know, Lisa, you're going to miss Italy here. The clock is ticking, Lisa. You're going to get there. I'm going to take this share screen off for a second.
You know, I just returned on
Oh,
Sunday.
did you?
Yeah.
Were you in the north again, though?
It's just Como and Florence.
Okay. You've really narrowed it down to Como and Florence, haven't you?
It seems that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the slow food thing is real. If you ever get to Barolo, not too far away, there's a slow food academy where they really celebrate the Italian heritage of sitting around a table and having a meal and slowing everything down and building the family relationship and just this, it's part of the culture there. And these wines certainly will help. Natalie, are you tasting number one with me?
I sure am. Yeah. Barolos are one of my favorite Italian wines, I think. I love wines with structure. And I mean, this is great. But it's not, I don't know. I mean, I've been like revisiting it. Because it's not too powerful though.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
just,
I think it's playing into its price point,
yeah,
and but they did a really good job of balancing it and giving you something that's pretty delicious for the money, and not trying to make it something that you can't just pull a cork and drink.
right. I was just gonna say, this one doesn't need food to make it awesome.
Yeah, but a few more years certainly would serve it well and continue to let it relax a little bit. But 16 is so good. It's so tempting already. This is a really iconic, great vintage. It's kind of a benchmark vintage. Everything will probably be compared to 16 for a while. 15 is also really good. A lot of the wines that we're going to taste today kind of go through a couple different vintages, so we'll see some vintage variation, but it was hard because 16s were popular and highly scored. Then the 17s started to show up and I'm like, I don't know if I want to buy some 17s. And all of a sudden I started tasting some of the 17s, and the 17s are so delicious. Now 17 might not have the aging quotient that 16 does, but when I'm talking aging quotient, I'm talking 20 plus years. So if you want to drink them in the next 3-4 years, you might actually enjoy the 17s a little bit more right now, just to kind of get something that's a little bit more approachable. And now the 18s are coming in, and 18's kind of getting a re-rating because 18 was very kind of mean and tough and difficult. And now that the wines are bottled and have spent time, and people have, a lot of the big reviewers already tasted these wines out of sample bottles sent to them like a year or two ago, when they kind of review the vintage really early on. And here we are. It's kind of like Burgundy. They have to review them when they're so young, that they're so difficult. So now you get some bottle age on them and they're starting to really be beautiful. And I think 18 is going to kind of be like, I think 18 is way better than its reputation. And it's not a bad reputation. It's just not like they always want to say 16 is so amazing. So I think 18 might be a little better of a vintage than 17, but maybe not quite as good as 16. But like I said, I've had great wines from almost all the surrounding vintages, and 15 is no slouch. It's right there. It's like just like in Bordeaux, it's neck and neck, 15 and 16. So a lot of good things to choose from here. Let's go back into our PowerPoint. Paul, thanks for joining us tonight. I only sent Paul one kit and he asked for two, so I hope you guys aren't fighting about the portions tonight.
Oh, we're making do. Really appreciate it.
Okay, sir. Second wine up. Have shown this wine before. It was a star of our Italian show last year, Italian Stars of Italy. This is what I'm talking about. This is a 2017 that just took my breath away. And I love this producer, Paolo Scavino. I can't recall. He's been ill for a while, so I'm not sure of his status today. But really an important producer family. He's got the next generation kind of lined up. The daughters are taking over the business. I have a feeling that has something to do with what we have in the glass tonight, because Paolo Scavino always made pretty macho wines, and this 17 is really beautiful, fun, approachable. It's got a richness to it, and approachability, a deliciousness that I've
Right.
always liked. I'm saying all that and I haven't tasted it, so let's put it in the mouth here. And you can almost smell this more plush, ripe red fruit. They make a digestif in Piedmont in Barolo called Cinato. Cinato is like a family recipe. They add all these herbs and you know, the type of things that you would add to like gin, like juniper and anise and mushrooms and all kinds of weird stuff can go into the family formula to make Cinato. It's kind of a and they fortify Cinato too. This almost has kind of like a Cinato nose to it. It's kind of a little perkier, a little riper, little maybe even kind of into that baked fruit, pruny fruit. Tannins are so much, they're there still, but they're so much more in the back and kind of hidden under all of that ripeness and richness. And I don't want to say candy because it's not sweet, but I hope you're following me and thinking that it's a little riper, a little rounder, a little creamier, not quite the pretty, elegant wine that we had in number one that was pretty spot on, exactly like an iconically styled wine. I would say this one's kind of a little bit more of an exaggeration, and it's really fun. It's really fun. Got some big scores. It's delicious, and I think for the price, again, we're looking at $58 here. It's just a really great performer. Let's take a look at the slideshow. Here's our look at the various zones. You got La Mora, Castiglione, Folletto, Serralunga, the actual Barolo area, and Novello. These are kind of the primary zones here that you're going to find the wines being made in. I think this one is Castiglione Folletto, but they just call it Barolo because there might be blending different parts together and not just making a single zone. Often the case when you're trying to make a wine in that $50-$60 range is you'll source fruit from various parts. As we look from the Palo Scavino hilltop down onto the family's vineyard. Seven Cru. Separated at vinification, destemmed with light crushing, maceration, and the alcoholic fermentation are in stainless steel here with temperature control. Indigenous yeast. Malolactic fermentation takes place when they move it into the oak barrel. They do use some neutral French oak barrel here. So 10 months of time with 12 months further in the large cask. So they'll play around with moving it from stainless to the smaller barrel, probably blending it, putting it into the large cask for its kind of its resting period before going into bottling. No shortage of great views. All these hills just kind of melting together. What'd you think of Palo Scavino? Did you have did anyone have any comments comparing it to the first?
Just that it's a lot brighter. you know,
Brighter?
Brighter, yeah.
Yeah, I think the
The
first
tart-
one just really sends you all the way to the glass, the wine, whereas this one's almost got kind of bursting from the glass. I don't know if that means the alcohols are higher, might be, because it was a warm vintage. And of course, they have drought issues just like we do, just like all of France. And so sometimes those type of things, you're going to get more extremes. You'll have some frost, you'll have some heavy rains, and then you'll have a lot of heat. And maybe the rains come at the wrong time, and maybe they stay around for a long time, and you get a lot of mildew pressure, etc. That would be the difference between a great vintage and more challenging vintage for a winemaker. Tiffany, we're on wine number 2, and we were tasting Paulo Scavino, and we had wine number 1 before that, which was from Giacomo Grimaldi. So we've tasted a 16, we've tasted a 17. Let's see where we go next. All right, now we're climbing the ladder. This is Caviolotto. And if I had to name off some brands that really kind of find me in Barolo with the kind of authenticity and the tradition and this kind of regal style, Caviolotto is it. This is kind of the top of the food chain for me. Now they do make some they make a Reserva. It sells for 2 to 3 times what this wine sells for. This is their home, Brico Boschis Barolo DOCG 2017 again. This is a very traditional producer. They use a lot of very large wood. I'm not sure they even have any small oak barrels in this winery. They even do some stem inclusion with this wine as well, which historically some of the more let's say the traditionalists kind of have style. They might use a little longer skin contact, a little more stem inclusion. In fact, I have opened really old bottles of Barolo and seen stem come out in the wine glass. It's their hygiene in bottling from the 1950s and 60s was pretty daring, and I do believe that they literally bottled the wine years and years later. Sometimes they just leave it in the wood cask until someone needed it, and they would bottle it years and years later. So there were different things going on back then. It was a different winemaking world. But at Caviolotto, really organized, simplistic, small team, hardcore family values, grandfather, grandpa, everybody's involved. And so this producer, they have a sensational set of vineyards. You stand up at the top of their hill, sitting in the winemaking area, and you look right down onto the Brico Boschis vineyard, and just an amazing set of tools that they have to work with. They're very fortunate. There's a look at the hillside there. And here's those barrels. Everything very uniform, very organized, clean, simplistic, long, slow fermentations. Tasting notes, red, ruby red with a core of slightly garnet reflections. This intense Barolo has an ethereal nose with powerful aromas of dried fruit, jam, licorice, and violet. Rich, full-bodied wines, and it is warm and quite soft with evident but ripe and sweet tannins. This Barolo will pair well with red meats, typical cheeses, and game dishes. Colors just a little bit more saturated in this glass of mine than the prior. The nose is predictably a little more restrained, a little bit more elegant, a little less ripe. They were not going to allow this wine to be consumed in a hurry. They're going to sell these wines. In fact, I could have bought 16 probably just even a short time ago. It's gone now, but 17 is what we have. Now, maybe the 18's on its way soon, but they're always about a year or two behind. Really slowing it down. This wine that's in our glass right now, just kind of keep talking about this beautiful Cabbiolotto wine for a second. 96 points, Robert Parker, big score. James Suckling also. The nose is just so pretty. It's like walking into a flower shop. Those rose petals. When they say tar and roses, they mean the kind of the rose petal, the red rose petal. Maybe a little road tar right behind that. What I've said this before, and I'm just going to say it again. Our little decanters that we send them in just take such good care of these wines. They're so much prettier today. When you first open the cork and you go to taste it, these wines love a little time and space. In fact, just a little thing, if you're gonna open a Barolo at your house, you wouldn't be wrong to open it the night before you're going to drink it at dinner. It really benefits. You just and if you're going to do that, you could just open it. You might taste it, see how it is. If it's on lockdown mode, go ahead and decant it, put it back in the bottle, put the cork back in, come back the night before. These wines love a little decantation time, and these little decanters just served us very well. We decanted this on Monday, so it's was poured from the bottle into the little jars. We fill the jars almost to the top. I wanted to leave a little bit of room for these wines to breathe a little bit. Oh, that is purring. It is so tannic, so beautiful. Wow. That wine is just sensational. Got some amazing grip and power. The wine prior to this had a little bit more approachability, roundness. I think some exaggerated characteristics to it. The first wine that we had tonight kind of aims to be a little bit in this league, but has to play at a slightly different, lower price point. Not very many people have the quality of fruit that this brand has and can put a wine in the bottle. And when I say this is only $90, it's because their reserve is like 200 and goes up every single year. And these wines are actually investment grade, really do continue to rise. And I recently just sold all my Reserva, so I'll be getting some Reserva again. But it just kind of sits there for a while. And somebody says, all right, I'm going to get some Reserva, and they come in and clean me out, one order. It's the third year in a row that's happened. So the Reserva is gone, but this 17 I still have a good amount of. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. And I understand if that might be too tannic for some people, especially at this moment. But if I had to own one wine in my store for a long period of time, that would be it. Great. I'm glad we got to do that together. I see a number of chats here. I'm glad you like it, Tiffany. Thank you. And I know I'm talking, but you guys can jump in too. I love it when the crowd just gets right in there and starts vocalizing. So I don't have any restraints on it. You guys can no, George, we're on wine 3. You're not alone. Some other folks came in a little bit late. So I'm just going to kind of go back and show everybody the order that we've gone through real quick to catch everybody up, because some people arrived a little bit late. We started off with the 2016 Giacomo Grimaldi. That was wine number 1 in a beautiful place, 2016. Really an elegant effort and from a perfect vintage and a very classic producer. Then we moved into Paolo Scavino, wine number 2, the 2017. A little more of a wine that's overachieved from a more difficult vintage, and really produce something yummy and round and exciting, exotic. And it really has some unique features to it. Very likable. And then number 3 is Caviolotto, which we're just finishing up with. And wow, it's pretty magnificent. And so it's absolutely made from the same, idealistic top vineyard selection. So even in a tough vintage like 17, just really coming in with something super textbook Barolo. Now we move to wine number 4. And I don't want to rush anybody, and I'm sorry if I appear to be rushing. I'm not. I've got almost all my wine still in front of me. I'll be here for a while, but I do try to get through it and then kind of celebrate at the end with you guys and let you ask questions and hang out. But some of you have babysitters and other things you got to get done, so I don't want to talk too long about any one wine. But I got to visit Elvio Cogno on my last visit to Barolo, and I was super impressed with the operation. With this guy is large and in charge. He's a very commanding presence, figure. I'm like, this guy is someone to be taking very seriously. I know the reputation of the brand is good. I don't think it's as big as some of the prior wines that we tasted, but I think it will get there. And now that they're represented by Wilson Daniels, who imports brands like Biannasanti and Domaine Romanicanti, this is a brand that's going to get more sunshine. And so I just happen to have a little 2015. I believe it's well under market in pricing. I don't have much of it, but I don't buy the wines to collect them. I buy the wines to sell them. And I do believe that this wine is a screaming deal. This producer makes wines that absolutely punish you if you drink them too early. And I will say Caviolotto can do that too, but Caviolotto's style is so I don't know, I won't say feminine, but it's not the masculine style. It's traditional. And it's not as masculine, maybe as Conio. I think Elvio Conio, the brand, is a really traditional but very masculine producer. And he has an amazing vineyard exposition. The view from his facility, he's got like a 360-degree view. That is the winery on the left. So we're looking at the right side, and he's got an equally beautiful view on the left side of the winery. The whole facility is like brand new. And more modern, the use of the smaller wood. Remember, I told you on Caviolotto, only the big barriques. This has got the big the footers, the big giant barrique. These are small 220 like Bordeaux style French oak barrels that you see below, and some of the more modern touches that you'll feel and smell are the more aggressive use of wood. And I've heard families literally break up because grandpa won't let the small barrel into the winery. It happens a lot. And bote, thank you, George. That's the word I was looking for. You felt me. Yeah, the big wood barrels are called bote. Let's see, this is a unique way to show the wine notes here. 3 hectares, 100% Nebbiolo, 4,000 vines per hectare. Very aggressive in spatial planting. That's a pretty strong number. A lot of the Barolo vineyards, older vineyards, are planted at much lower density. Altitude, a little bit, nothing too high here. You're talking about maybe 1,000 feet above sea level. And this is the primary production for the winery. 24 months in the Slovenian oak barrel, 60 days on lees, and 6 months in bottle aging before this wine gets shipped off. When you smell number 4, you can just tell there's like, this is where I told you my taste buds go into like preventive kind of prep for the tannins that are about to be bestowed upon them. My teeth are like getting coated with saliva to prevent them from chipping. Here we go. Now this has the benefit of time. This wine's a 15er. So we're in its 7th year now, and it's really moved into a wonderful spot, especially with that, 2 days of decantation since we put them in the little decanters on Monday. Everything here is in a beautiful spot. I love the presentation here. It's very classic, a little bit more tightly wound than some of the 17s will be. 15s is kind of a lay down vintage, but yeah, there's nothing that's going to prevent me from taking this wine out for dinner right now. How's everyone feeling? All right. Bravo. There's nothing wrong with any of these wines. That wine is gorgeous. Thanks, Stephanie. Glad you like it. We do have one more. George, are you doing all right? I haven't heard from you. You can come out and talk. Nancy, I hope everything's treating you well. Good to see you again. Janice, so happy you could join us tonight. Thank you so much. Lisa Setsuko from Japan is listening as well. Setsuko, I'm coming to Japan in February. First time ever. Yes, George, these wines with dinner, absolutely. Well, if anyone has some suggestions for me, I'm going to be my wife's in charge of the Japan trip. She does all of our travel stuff, all of our trips on our website, and I promised her a trip where we wouldn't take a group. So Japan is it. They do make a little wine on Mount Fuji, actually, but we won't be going to any wineries. Might do a sake house. We'll see. The schedule is getting pretty tight. And so, but she loves to eat very well. And that doesn't mean Michelin stars. She finds the little teeny places. She likes the little stand-up ramen. She wants to do all that stuff. So if you have any suggestions, love to get them. And Setsuko does a lot of our Zooms. She lives in Tokyo. So yes, I would love to meet you in Japan too, Setsuko. So let's do that. Send me an email. We'll figure it out. All right. Okay. Let's go into, oh, here we go. Look at here. This is opening up the door of the fermentation tank. You got all those berries and see some of that stem in there. That's what I'm talking about. All right, so we're going to finish up with wine number 5 and Aldo Conterno. And this is the Barolo Busia 2017. When you rank producers and you have certain reverence for certain names, this is one of the granddaddies. This is one of the big bad wines of the area of Barolo, meaning this one is typically investment quality, ages, you can't age these wines long enough. Often restaurants struggle because they want to have Aldo Conterno on the wine list, but they don't get to buy older wines. They'll have to age them themselves. And but 17 might be a vintage that lets us get a little bit closer to the wine. Let's see how it gives us a chance to taste here. But they'll use some stem inclusion here. Let's see some of the notes here. Over the past decade, the estate has worked hard to ensure the place among the pantheon of hallowed Barolo producers, decreasing production by well over 50% through extreme tirage or in the vineyard. So that's when you're picking the grapes. So they're just being very meticulous about what grapes they're picking. Their harvest teams threatened mutiny at the first over bunches that would normally have been harvested, but that Conterno knew would be better to cut early to or green harvest to flavor optimal development in the remaining bunches. So by reducing the crop load on the vine and doing a green harvest, probably around July, you reduce the number of bunches and really allow the vine to work on the smaller amount of fruit. So they really reduce their yields. And the result of this rigorous approach has been noticed with highly praised in the international press. Wines are remarkably approachable, characterized by particularly sweet fruits in their youth, as well as spice and vanilla notes. These are clean, polished, and ethereal wines of great elegance that are guaranteed to offer years of sublime drinking while being terrific collector items as well. So, of course, looking at this particular wine, Poder Aldo Conterno, Busia, right in the heart of Barolo. That's the Busia vineyard right underneath the red name. This is a 17 wine, so maybe nuance isn't quite there yet. I'm reading some of the comments here. "55-year-old vines." And that vine age really helps in more difficult vintages. These older vines are a lot more careful about how much fruit they try to produce. It's almost like, an older winemaker slowing down to really relish quality approach. And the vines kind of take that stance as well. It's very fascinating. Incredible vineyard holdings and sites. I'm going to take off our slideshow for a minute and taste this wine with you. Super dense, pretty young. I knew that would be the case. I'm going to say this wine actually, since opening, closed down even more. On opening, gave me a little bit more fruit and a little bit more excitement. But with air, it kind of mellowed things out, and the tannins are just really intensive here. This is an extremely, I started talking about masculine, feminine earlier in tonight's program. I think we have examples of both styles. This is an extremely masculine style, really aggressive on the tannic portion of the presentation here. Kind of famously masculine, bold. But the fruit element has become a little less pop, and that tannin is really taken over this wine. That is not a bad thing. It's just we're drinking this wine very young. I'd say this 2017 is the kind of wine you want to put in your cellar. 8-9 years is really the right number to drink these things. So by 25, this wine is going to start unwinding and really integrating at the same time. Relentless in quality, and in their reputation is pretty much second to none. They have name recognition wise, Cavialotto might be kind of the geek's wine, but most every restaurant in Italian restaurant in Los Angeles is going to have a Conterno wine on the list, the high end of the list. I'm super happy you like, and you can tell me which one you like the most. Please welcome. I'm going to open up the screen here. I'd love to hear from you guys. Thanks for all the comments on the chat, but love it if you guys just tell me what you feel. Tell me what you think. Gary, tell me what's up.
Well, if I was going to drink it tonight,
Okay.
it'd be number 4.
If you're going to drink it tonight, it would be number 4. Very cool.
And number 1 would be second. And number 5 would be third.
Nice.
Too bad we don't agree. This is Kathy. I drink number 3.
Kathy, his wife, says she would drink number 3 first.
She'd go for 2.
2? All right.
No,
No?
no.
Which one, Kathy?
3 or 4.
3 or 4? Excellent.
Well, I picked 4 as number 1.
Yeah, well, that's my second choice.
There you go. Stephanie and Dave, the Chapmans, who Gary, you know, they picked number 3 as well.
Ian, I just
Yes.
wanted to say thank you for doing this. Love, love, love. It's so awesome. And
Well, you guys
Sure.
look so cute sitting there. I got to tell you, Tiffany, fantastic, beautiful couple.
That's what we're going for.
I've known Ian for a long time, and I'm so happy to see this. You've grown so much over the years. So thank you. Thank you for doing this. And Barolo's our favorite. And what is your favorite?
Number 3 and number 4 are both fantastic. Number 5 is really good and sneaking up on me. So wondering what would happen over time.
Yeah.
Number 1 is great. And if that's your value hit of the day. Number 2 is the only one I have any sort of reservations about, but
Okay.
still, if somebody put it in front of me, I sure wouldn't kick it out of bed.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Yeah, I mean, it's amongst champions, so it's kind of fighting a fight. But I'm pretty interested in number 2 as to what's happened in the last year, because it was a little more. I mean, maybe that's why 17 causes some concern with ratings, etc., because the vintage may be a drink early vintage or drink earlier vintage, at least in this particular case, and not necessarily in some of the others. But I'm happy to hear what you guys said. I mean, I poured it on with my love for Caviolotto on number 3, but I think the wine just tells you why. It's just these guys are just maniacal when it comes to their belief system and their understanding of their vineyard, and they only use their own fruit, and they have some of the best vineyards in the business. So I mean, it's no surprise that the wine is amazing, and I'm a super big fan. And quite honestly, number 4 has exactly the same situation. The vineyards, and it's more of the state of the art in number 4 versus the very traditional number 3. And the vintages are comparable, 16 versus 15. Really interesting what's happening there. And then you got the small barrique bringing this little more, I think it's almost like a more dusty tannin in number 4 versus a more gripping, gritty tannin in number 3. And probably just because of that slower matriculation in the big barrel.
What was the price of number 4?
It's kind of a value. Let me see. I'm going to kind of go and show you on the website real quick, because some people have not bought wine from us before. I just will show you how I do it. So I would go here. You could go into regions and pull down Italy. We've got Piedmont, but that'll give you a lot of wines that aren't necessarily Barolo as well, because we do have Barolo. There we go. And so I would search by the word Barolo and just pull up pretty much different things that we have. And I do have quite a few, but the wine number 4 was right here. That was $70 for the Cogno 15. Like I said, I think that wine is kind of a sneaky good deal, because the current vintage 17, I probably have to sell at $89 because of price increases and things that are happening. And now they're being brought in by Wilson Daniels, and they're going to take a little bigger slice too. So this wine's heading towards $100 pretty as fast as they can get it there. I promise you that.
Thank you.
You got it. But Barolo has many different price leaders. I have Giacosa on the website at $240 a bottle. And that's the 216. I have some different vineyard designations, and things. But today I wanted to show a really nice cross section of different ideas in Barolo. I think it's really fascinating to taste the vintages next to each other because all these producers are so good. They really, there's no apologies here. I just think they're showing their vintage. And Barolo, like if I were to go to a restaurant, I'd love to be able to buy Barolo that's 2015, 2014. 12 would be a better vintage, or 10, 12, or 15 are the better vintages. 11, 13, 14, not the better vintages, but that's when I could say, okay, 14 Caviolotto Reserva. And it's probably a price deal, tougher vintage, better producer. So you can kind of move around a little bit with the producers and the vintages and get something pretty exemplary. They're not going to put it in the bottle though if it doesn't live up to it. That's the luxury they have. They could always declassify the wines to Longue Nebbiolo, and a lot of them do in the tougher times.
Ian, question for you. I was actually going to ask about that.
Yeah.
Because that region, we love that region, and trying to get, sometimes your night doesn't dictate a Barolo budget. So when you're looking at Barbera d'Alba or Barbaresco or Longue, like how do you navigate those waters relative to Barolo? I mean, maybe that's a tangential conversation or subject, but curious on your thoughts there.
Well, first, I can appreciate that very much. I am definitely a Barolo lover with a Barbera budget. And so I drink a lot of Barbera, and I think I was talking to somebody tonight recommending a wine. They're going to go to a big fancy party. He doesn't want to spend a lot of money. He doesn't know who's going to end up drinking this wine because it's going to be kind of like a blind party where every table is going to get somebody else's blind wine. And so he's like, I want to bring something that doesn't embarrass me, but it's not very expensive. And I said, Barbera is the wine that whenever I use it in a blind tasting, people like it like as much as a $50 bottle of wine. And it's likable. It's a super overachiever. And I love having Barbera before I have my Barolo at a big dinner with friends. So I'll take Barbera. We'll drink copious amounts of Barbera before we get to the expensive Barolo, so you don't have to drink as much Barolo. That's another good thing. Just kind of cut the budget by doing it that way too. But I think Barbera is always a good option every night of the week, and Barolo is kind of the special occasion wine.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a green girl, Ian, and I know a lot of like organic and eco.
Oh, that's what that meant. Okay.
Yeah, in that sense. They're not great wines, to be honest. I mean, I've tried them. I want to support, but like, I think the people who then want to do that type of wine aren't winemakers by heart, and so they try and they're not great. I haven't found it yet, at least.
Okay.
But I'm interested because I think Barolo, because it's such a small, area. I think they, I'm just guessing, but you might know because you've been there more often. Are they more sustainable in that way? Like, do they spray less pesticides on their grapes? Like,
Wow, that's such a good question. And I'm going to say that any traditional spot like Barolo, even Bordeaux, is getting so green. I mean, so healthy. The green movement swung the wine industry on its tail because Barolo's still making wine like they were, like it's 1945. It's like they're back in a different time for the most part, and you can't spray your vineyard when you have a neighbor that will kill you if you spray. So they're very protective. Now, there are things you can do in the vineyards that are green and to protect the fruit, and that's what they're doing. they're super conscious about their ecosystem. Do you see how tight those other, one vineyard is right next to another? You can't do anything, you know, that is going to jeopardize your neighbor's designations. And Barolo is really going for that green fingerprint, that absolutely. And all these wines are made with natural yeast, and all these wines spend super slow time in the barrels.
I know, we should go back from.
So everything's done by hand. Everything's, you know, bottled with very low additional sulfur counts. So I don't think I don't think the ethos system will be challenged by drinking a wine from a classic zone of quality, and Barolo is certainly going to satisfy that. Now, inside of Barolo, there are going to be producers that'll even pay to promote their green elements, and I do think that that's a next step. You'll see a lot of European sustainable things starting to appear, but because of that neighbor thing, some of them are restricted as to how far they can go, because you just can't take a chance and go full biodynamic necessarily unless you have your own ecosystem. And so I'm not aware of any biodynamic producers in Barolo, but I bet there is one. But I know that there's a lot of that are going for that green cert in Europe, and it's a little green leaf, and it's on the back of the bottle, and that's starting to appear on a lot of producers in the coming years. And what they're looking for is, you know, how much waste, what are they doing with their waste? So, well, these guys don't have any, you know, they sell off they sell off all of their seeds and their skins to the grape industry, or they bring it back into their fertilizing program, and they're super, you know, bio protective. So I again will say that Piedmont's going to be a really good choice for someone who has a high ethos and green identification. And I know Caviolotto is absolutely at the top of that chart, top of that chart.
So good to know, and just like a best kept secret, because you know the certifications don't mean that much to me, because I know there are a lot to gain that, but that's the way they were always growing their grapes and doing everything. So I love that. So, you ever go to Barolo? Can we go to Barolo? Let's go.
Yeah. Oh, I've been at several times. I went last November with a group, and I'm going to go again probably in 24 will be the next time I go, because it's so important to me, and it's such a great place to go. And we springboard from Barolo into other places too. So this year we're going to Sicily, and it's a great moment to talk about that, because I love to travel. I have now fully recovered from the trip I just took with a great group to Portugal, and it went, we were so fortunate. I don't know if everybody's aware of how badly Portugal got hammered by rains, but literally Lisbon was underwater a week after we left. And I just cannot even imagine, you know, how lucky we were, and how sad I am for some of the people that live in Lisbon to watch their cars, their homes just get completely flooded by 4 feet of water. So it was really kind of tough, but I'm very fortunate that we were able to go see the best side of Portugal, and not the struggling side. The next trip I have outside of this country is we're going to Sicily. We're going on, well, we start the trip on April 23rd, which is a Sunday. I typically arrive a day or two before. We have an amazing extension coming together as well. So we'll be there 30, probably into the first day or two of May. And we're almost ready.
White box.
We're almost ready to announce the full details of the trip. So you can see kind of the projected outline of the trip on the website as we speak, but
White box.
there's a lot more detail coming very, very soon. We're pushing every day. And we'll be having that up for sale very soon. We do have a number of people that have already placed a deposit. This trip will sell out within a day of us announcing it. So if you want to consider it, make sure you put yourself on the interest list immediately, because we're probably 5 people away from selling this trip out without even announcing it yet. So that's where we're at.
Great.
If you saw White Lotus,
That's my actually only concern. I actually have I have family from Taormina.
Run White Lotus.
Yeah.
it's a great well, I don't like the Hawaii episode as much as I like the Sicily part, but the trip showed some amazing showed some amazing scenes. But we're going to cover the entire island. We will stay in at least 3 different hotels in a week's time, because that's how you have to do it.
Other than, and I don't know, is it Nero d'Avola or D'Avola? I don't know which it is, but what other wines are prominent there?
Well, probably Norello Mascalese from the volcano is going to be the highlight of the trip. But there are so many different grape varieties. Whether it's white wines, there's just tremendous white wines. There's Nero blends as well, and then and that's Nero d'Avola or Norello Mascalese blends, and then there's the one of the greatest dessert wines in the world as well. From the islands, just really, really great. And then, of course, the food. We eat like champions, right, Gary? We do tend to eat pretty well on the trip. Gary was on the trip with me, so put him on the spot. I don't know if he's still there.
Oh, yeah, I'm there.
Okay. But the wineries really put out something fun for us. So the trip is something to talk about, but also next Wednesday's Zoom, we have Santa Barbara, and our Santa Barbara lineup is ridiculous. I love bringing together winemakers to talk about their wines with other winemakers. So this is really kind of something we do once a month in a bigger way. And I promote it on Learn About Wine because it's Learn About Wine presents Santa Barbara. So I go up and I talk to these guys, and we're going to have my friend Jeff Nelson from Liquid Farm. We're going to have the winemaker Ernst Storm from Donica. We're going to have Bruno D'Alfonso and Chris Curran. We'll have Matt Dees on the Zoom with us from Mail Road. Paul Lotto on the Zoom with us. One of the most decorated winemakers in all of California. He's probably the name fewest people know, but he makes so many wines that get 94 to 100 points. It's crazy. And then Camins to Dreams is probably the smallest producer we've ever featured in. They make a Zodovich Syrah that'll knock you out, and they're a super cute couple, and they'll be on the Zoom with us too. So that's our Santa Barbara lineup. That's next Wednesday. 5 winemakers. We have 5 tasting kits available now. And then this event is sold out. There's a bottle kit of possibility as well, if you want to get a group together and join us. But that's our once a month, our spotlight event, and that's it. And our full calendar of activities on Learn About Wine or Zoom into Wine of some of the other stuff that we are trying to accomplish. And we've had a real fun time with this. We're going to continue Zooming all year long. So if you like what we're doing, please join our Zoom into Wine website membership. You get some people are on the Zoom tonight. They're members, and they don't even need to buy the flight or the kit. Just come and participate and join. And then they still get the discount code. We give a discount code every event. And so this one tonight or the next week after, you'll be able to join us for these really successively amazing Zooms. The Zoom we finished the month of January with is our top wines of 2022. And these are 7 of the wines that you can actually still buy from 2022, and a pretty awesome lineup. And I'm so excited to be able to present that to you. You might want to join us for that. That'll be 7 wines. I don't usually do 7 wines on a Zoom, but for the top wines of 22, I had to narrow it down, and that's as close as I could get. So thank you guys for your time tonight. I appreciate it, everybody. And George, I saw your comment about recommending Nebbiolo Longue, and I totally agree. I didn't say anything about it after I focused on Barbera, but those wines can be really sneaky good, and a lot of fun, and definitely on a budget. David, thanks very much for joining us again. And Zizzle from Mazzi makes great wine. Okay, cool. Edna Bianco, that's what I'm talking about, David. I love the white wines of Etna as well. Yes, and Steph and Dave, so much food for sure. Steph and Dave went up with us to Portugal as well, and we ate our way across Portugal. It was amazing. And yes, we have wine, cheese, and chocolate coming to Zoom in February. That'll be our Valentine's edition. So we're going to keep going. We're published all the way out through the end of March right now, and some really good lineups coming together. My team works every day at pushing the needle forward. So to come in and back and see us, and don't forget to buy some wine from Merchant of Wine. And we ship free delivery in Los Angeles Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. We ship in California on orders over $100 for $10. So check out the lineup. I'm pretty proud of where the website's at, but a year from now, I'm going to be even more proud. We're continuing to elevate the selection, not necessarily get more expensive, just kind of being able to work with more and more producers. I'm not buying as many wines as I once did. Now I'm just kind of buying exactly what I want. And we're just going to keep elevating the selection. And that's the future for us here. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. And I'll look forward to seeing you on the next Zoom into Wine session, or maybe come and see me live at a Learn About Wine dinner or tasting that we have coming, and love to travel with you too. Thanks very much. Have a good night.
Thanks, Ian.
Thanks, Ian.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess.
Thank you both. Thanks, Nancy. Thanks, Natalie.